Hello, and welcome to the 12th episode of the Artistic Spirit, hosted by HorseSpirit Arts Gallery. My name is Robin Holliday, and tonight it is my pleasure to welcome to you a very talented painter, Deborah Maklowski. She works in pastels, colored pencil, and mixed media. She has a wicked sense of humor that will come out tonight, and you will really enjoy seeing her work and meeting her. Before we do that, I'd like to explain to you how this live Facebook show works. So I'd like to introduce you to Rob Hix. And Rob is the reason this show even exists. He thought of the idea. He persuaded me over a 3-month period that it was a good thing to do. And now I'm a big believer. And he's a producer of our show. So let me introduce you. Hey, Rob, come on screen with me.
Hello, Robin.
Hey, Rob.
How are you?
Good. Will you tell everybody how tonight works?
Yes, and I want to say hi to Beverly. She hopped in early to the chat, so hi, Beverly.
Hey, Beverly.
So it's kind of cool because now people are starting to get that we're not trying to do a TV show, we're trying to do a campfire. So, if you guys have questions and want to ask Deborah something or Robin something, put it in the chat and we'll read it on air, say hi. But we want this, like I said, to be a community-based weekly thing, and it requires you guys to talk as well as us. So make sure you comment, like, and of course share it out. We would love it. You've got a great show tonight. You're going to love Deborah's work, and have fun.
Thank you, Rob.
All right.
So here we go. Deborah is one of 47 artists at HorseSpirit Arts Gallery, and she is, let me tell you things she won't tell you about herself. First of all, her artwork is in collections all over the country, both in galleries and private collections, etc. She's from California to New York City, all the way to Kentucky. So she's in a whole bunch of places. As I said, she works in pastels, mixed media, and colored pencils. She is also in a book, and I'd like to read you the title of that book. It is called Strokes of Genius, the Best of Drawing. So that's pretty cool. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Deborah Maklowski.
Hi, Robin.
Hey, Deborah. It's nice to have you here with us tonight.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think this should be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Okay, so my first question for you is, please tell us about your background and your passion for creating art.
Well, actually, it started when I was a kid. Pretty much as soon as I could hold a pencil, I started drawing, and or what I thought was drawing. I imagine other people were not really sure. And I drew on everything. I drew on walls and books and whatever I could get to. So my parents eventually wised up and they bought me a big roll of butcher paper, so I could just tear off big sheets of paper and just have at it. As we moved around a lot, my father was a contractor for the Navy. My parents always managed to find me a teacher somewhere, and I started learning how to paint in oils when I was about 9. When I was about 10, they signed me up for the famous artist school, the one in Connecticut. It was actually started by the New York Society of Illustrators, and it was actually very effective. You would get a project in the mail, you would do the project, you'd send it back, and they would criticize your work, critique your work for you. They send it back to you with an overlay so you could see what you had done and how you could improve your work. And as goofy as it sounds, it was actually, for somebody who was always moving, it was a great idea.
And how old were you when you were first getting your work critiqued? That sounds pretty young.
About 10,
Wow.
11, 12. And then high school, art teachers, and then college. Then I went to work, and I stopped working. I really worked mostly in pencil and graphite while I was employed, because it's really hard to keep up your art career when you're trying to work full time.
But now you are more dedicated to your art career. I would also like the viewer to know, whenever I get a request for somebody to judge an art contest, I go to 2 people. Brenda Kadera is one of them, and you are the other one. You are so good at, being able to critique with kindness art. And it's something I really like about you, and I feel really good, recommending you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's being able to talk about your own work is a critical skill for any artist. Not just to explain your process, but also, what drives you, what inspires you. But being able to then have that same conversation with other people about their work that keeps them encouraged and keeps them moving forward. I've had some memorable critiques in my art career, and I have sworn I would never do what has been done to me on occasion. So, you learn from other people's mistakes. But thanks, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, one other side is we were at the Howard County Open together, you and I pointed out this painting. It was by Sharon Trumbull that I really just loved.
Yes.
You came up to me and you said, okay, here's why you like this, and here's everything that's right with that painting. And it was just really helpful.
Well, thank you. It's just one person's opinion. I mean, that's what,
that's understand why I thought that painting was so really well done. And you could technically point out to me why it was.
And you were right. It was.
Well, okay. My second question for you is, would you tell the viewers all the different types of art, and what do you mean when you say like mixed media? What does that mean to you?
Right. Okay. So I actually work in I've 3 different bodies of work. Like I said, when I was working full time, I started out with graphite, and I switched to colored pencil because it's pretty easy to pick up and put down. It doesn't make a mess. It doesn't have a smell, and you can get some really interesting effects with colored pencil. And I did that for a long time, but it's very slow. Very tedious, and so I picked up a set of pastels that were my mother's. My mother was also an artist, and she gave me a set of pastels that I took to class and took a pastel class, and so I started working mainly outdoors with pastels, and that was a lot of fun, and that's what I did a lot for several years. But then in a couple of years ago, we had an opportunity to have a show with the Pastel Society, Maryland Pastel Society, at the Strathmore, and it was we were given the room if we would do something with something different with the pastels. So we decided to do Pastel Mixed-Media, and that took me back into the studio, and I started just playing. I just started experimenting. I took one surface of every kind of surface I had, and I just threw stuff on it, scrubbing pastels and scraping pastels and diluting pastels and just doing everything you could to them. And in the course of doing that, I realized how much fun that was, that I was not having to, think and plan as much, and I could just experiment and play. So for me, the mixed media really is, right now it focuses primarily on acrylics, acrylic paints and mediums and gels, and then a lot of collage, papers and found objects. And one of the things I really love, I've found, is a source for the faces of watches, where watches get taken apart, and so you have the dial with the numbers. Sometimes the hands are still attached, sometimes they're not, and using those in collage is a great way to come up with a quick focal point, and sort of play with different concepts, stones and things that glitter, gold leaf and foils, beads and things that I'm like a little magpie. I just see shiny things and I'm kind of squirrel them into my pockets and take them home.
That's so funny. Okay, so a couple of things. One is you are an officer in the American Colored Pencil Society.
That's correct. I'm on the national board. I'm the product research director. So my job is to answer members' questions about pencils, technical questions, and papers and other surfaces. But primarily what I do is conduct light fast tests on colored pencils. So the manufacturers donate pencil sets to us, and I conduct light fast tests in accordance with a standard under the ASTM international standards.
Well, being that you are so technical and kind of a nerd, this is the perfect job for you.
Beverly asked whether my mom was an artist. Yes, in fact, I have some of her artwork in the house. She wasn't professional. She did it as one of those genteel skills that Southern ladies were taught how to do. But she was actually very good at it, and so she really encouraged me to draw and paint. Also, she was a dancer, and she tried to get me to dance, and that was so horrific. And terrifying, especially for all those poor little girls that were in those classes with me. And eventually I refused. I just refused. So she gave in, and that's when she decided to get me lessons.
That's wonderful. That's
She was
wonderful.
very disappointed.
Well, as you know, I know I own 3, but I actually think I own 4 of your mixed media paintings. So
I think you do too. Yeah.
it's kind of dangerous being the gallery curator because I get to pick all the art, but some of the art never makes it into the gallery. So,
well, just think about it this way. It's a good thing you don't own a donut store.
well, that's true. I would be huge. I would be just.
Yeah.
All right. So at this point, Rob has gone over to your studio and taken some photos. So Rob, how about roll the first film and let Deborah talk about her studio and what we're seeing?
All right. So my studio is pretty much the entire basement. I've kind of divided it up into zones. This is where I work on colored pencil pieces. It's your standard drawing table with a lot of pencils. I have, I think, one of almost every brand of pencil, or one set of every brand, plus a lot of the ancillary tools. But it's a great working space. This is a drawing table that I found a long time ago. It works great. I keep a journal as I work, so I know each piece I'm working on, and I track each day that I work on it, so I know roughly how long it takes me to complete a piece. This is just a tabaret with supplies. You can see on top here there's a spare pencils, my inventory. Underneath that are papers. There's collage papers, a lot of storage, an Icarus board, which I can talk about later. Then in the rack, these racks here is where I have completed framed pieces, and they're all sort of stacked between sheets of foam core so I can find them. This is around the corner. This is my mixed media station. It's you can see I keep a towel on it because I'm messy. Oh no, I'm sorry, we're at the framing station. Same thing though, I keep a towel on it because I'm messy. So all the frames are stacked. I bought all these racks cheap when several art stores closed. Now this is the mixed media station. A lot of the collage stuff is heading off their left-hand side of the screen, and over here, as coming into view, are the acrylics, the paints, and the mediums. And then I have these 2 big boxes, 2 3-drawer stacks of pastels that I picked up for like $5 each. They weigh about 4 pounds. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to move them out. Then I have an easel, mud lamps, and a camera set up so I can photograph my work when it's done.
And you're very good at that.
Well, I'm getting better, actually. These are racks that my husband put in for me. This is where I put work in progress, because you never know quite whether it's done or not, and I have to think about things to decide what I'm going to do next. So I park them up on those racks until I figure out what the next steps are.
That is so cool. I love that you describe yourself as a magpie, with shiny things, because your pictures, your finished pieces of art that you bring into the gallery, that you do remind me. That's such a good description.
Well, I'm like, Beverly was sort of talking about the same thing, and Eileen with her fabrics. I mean, that we all sort of collect the stuff that draws us and that makes us think about possibilities, and that's really kind of what drives a lot of that is, sometimes a whole piece is built around just an object or an idea or a color or a texture that you saw that just suddenly, inspired a whole series of thoughts and plans. So it's fun.
So in case you don't know, Beverly Hunter is one of the artists in the gallery, and she has already done her video show, and she's a mosaic artist. And Eileen Williams is a fabric 3-dimensional sculptor. And when we went in her studio, I swear she looked like a hoarder. It was just all the way to the ceiling, just racks and racks of bolts of cloth.
Well, see, we have an advantage, Beverly and I, because what we collect tends to be small. It's hard to hide all that fabric. Wendy says she's glad I'm an artist and not a dancer, and that's you have no idea how glad that you are.
All right, Rob, will you show us the next video of Deborah actually at work?
So I'm doing 3 different things here. The first is a mixed media piece, and this is one that had been sitting up on those racks for a while, and I decided what I wanted to do was give it a different color, take it in a different direction. So I'm wetting the board very wet, getting it really, really wet, soaking it with water. It's got a bunch of texture on it already, And I'm going to apply Golden's bronze. It's a iridescent bronze. And what that does is it actually turns into a patina. If you've used enough water and you drop this paint into the water, it starts to get the same kind of beautiful green patina that copper will get. And when it dries, if you're lucky, it sticks around. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's totally accidental. I never know where that beautiful turquoise color is going to appear. I think Rob will have a closer shot of it as it starts to, it happens pretty fast as it starts to sort of turn blue. You can see how the blue colors are coming out.
Beautiful.
And it sort of pools up in the texture that's already there. Now this is a piece I've had up there for a while too. And what I decided to try on this was something I'd never done before. The Krylon, which makes a lot of art sprays. They make something called I forget, it's called like webbing spray. And what it does is when you spray it, it comes out with like these little fine lines like spider webs. So I masked off the part that I don't want the spray on, and now I'm going to try spraying it on there and see what happens. Sometimes this is what mixed media is about. You know, if you're not happy with where it is, you just throw stuff on it and see where it takes you. So I kind of like this. I told Rob that I took it a little further after we were done with this video, and I'm not happy with what I did, but I'll be able to fix it. Now this piece is one I'm working on for a series that I want to have in the gallery for the show in September. It's on Duralar, which is a drafting film. So and it's in colored pencil, so you work on both sides. So what you just saw me do was I finished the back and I've turned it over, and now I'm going to start working on the front. So what you're seeing here is actually the colored pencil that was applied on the back and now I'm working on the top of the drafting film. This whole series was inspired by watching a pat of butter melt in a pan June a year ago. And I've already done, this is my 5th piece. This is the one I completed just before that. When the butter melts, it does amazing things and turns incredible colors. So I take thousands of photographs, I crop them, I blow them up, and that's what I'm working on.
Wow, that's amazing. That is really amazing. I would love for people to see your work that's in the gallery right now. So Rob, will you show us some pictures? And Deborah, can you tell us what we're looking at?
Sure. This is a colored pencil piece called Help Wanted. This was actually, I've got some stuff here for you. This was actually based on a photograph I took in like the 80s when we first came back from Germany to Laurel. It was the Little Tavern in Laurel, and this was before digital cameras. So all I don't even have the negative for this anymore. All I have is this black and white photograph I was working from. When I work in colored pencil, because colored pencil takes so long, and it's a medium of layers, you just keep layering pencil layer on top of layer until you get the color that you want. So I always make sure I do like a little planning document. You don't need to see, but I put like I try different layers and different color combinations to try and achieve the effects I want. When I got finished with that, I really liked the drawing, but I thought it was a little dull. So I put a cow in it.
Rob, will you go back and show us that picture?
I don't know if you can see, you can just see the cow, the head of the cow in the window. So I went into my own collection of cow pictures and I found a cow. I really like the look on his face. He looks like he's going, help me. So since it said help wanted in the window, I thought that's what I would call it. So I've actually had somebody ask me how I got the cow into the restaurant.
Nice. I get lots of interpretations of that piece. What I'm amazed by is the detail. I cannot imagine how long that took you.
It took over 80 hours.
Wow. Well, it's really fabulous.
Thank you. Thanks. I like it a lot. This is called Synergy. This was actually inspired by the work of a friend of mine who's also on the National Governing Board of the Colored Pencil Society. She got one of her abstracts, got an award, and she sent us a photo of it. And it was a lot of nuts and bolts and you know, mechanically kind of things. and she built like this city. And so it was very textured. It was, high rises and low rises, and it had a lot of, it was turquoise and sort of sea green. But I was really intrigued by the idea of using, washers and all kinds of different bolts and screws and things like that. So I did my own version of it, but I didn't want to paint it. I really liked the shiny, again, I liked the shininess of it all. I liked the brass against the silver and so forth. So that was synergy. This is a piece called Printemps. It's a glass, iodized glass beads over gold and copper leaf and a variegated leaf in the middle. I've really been fascinated with, now this isn't genuine gold leaf. This is not the really expensive stuff because I'm messy and I would waste a lot of it. But it's it still has a beautiful sheen to it. It's really hard to photograph, to tell you the truth, because it's hard to capture it without those little dark spots and bright spots. But it's very shiny. I like it.
Can you show us a close up of this by any chance? Nope. Okay. Sorry. All right. Next piece.
Next piece. This is Blackwater Blue and Gold. This is done from a photograph that I took at Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge when I was out there doing a couple of days of plein air painting. But when you go out to paint plein air, you get the impression of the moment. But if you get the photographs, you come back and you can work from those. So this is the photograph that I took, and again, this is also colored pencil photograph. Also colored pencil, so I did a lot of planning. I planned out my colors and took lots of notes. And then what I generally do is I blow the photograph up in black and white to the size I want to work. And I don't know if you can see it, but when I transfer the drawing, I find these little navigational points where shapes meet, and I measure them down and over, and then I mark all those little points on the paper, and then I have a little map for how to transfer the drawing and reproduce the drawing onto the surface of the paper.
Wow, that is so impressive. You've taken like all your technical skills and integrated them into your art.
I'm a nerd. You told me that. You're right.
Well, but in the nicest possible way. All right, so tell us about wait, I want to see more work in the gallery. Rob, what else do you have for me?
This one's called Byzantine. This was an experiment with what's called clear tar gel, which is really cool stuff, but I hadn't done much with it. So my idea was to paint a lot of really vibrant colors on a piece of multimedia board. And then I drip the clear tar gel, which is just exactly like it sounds. It dries completely hard, but completely clear. So you drip the tar gel over the top of it, and you can see those vibrant colors through it. And everywhere that it isn't, I put gold leaf on. And then at the top, I put some more of the iridized stones, they're glass, and some little other beads. And this one took a long time because I kept getting it too gold and then too dark and then too gold, and I just kept going back and forth. But eventually, by accident, I found the right solution. I was actually going to cut it up into 3 different pieces, so I put tape on it to understand where I wanted to cut it. When I pulled the tape up, it had exactly the effect under the tape that I wanted, so I taped over the whole thing and then pulled all the tape up.
Wow, it looks beautiful in the gallery.
Thank you. This is a piece. It's actually a very tiny, small piece of a much larger photograph. This was taken in Kensington Park in London when I was there a few years ago. The red coats are worn by the British military pensioners, army pensioners. This is a way of working in colored pencil, actually, that's much faster than the traditional way. It's done on a sanded paper, like a pastel paper. Over that, I paint gouache, which is an opaque watercolor, water-based paint. And then once that dries, then I layer colored pencil on top. So it's a very forgiving thing, and it's very quick. The gouache goes on quickly. the pencil is usually just 1 or 2 layers. I don't have to do 10 or 12 layers of pencil. So I can produce one of these little guys within a couple of weeks as opposed to several months. And it's also forgiving. If I do something that I don't like, I can use Scotch tape to lift the pencil off. I can use water to lift the gouache off. And then I'm right back down to bare paper and I can correct my mistake. You can't correct mistakes with colored pencil very easily. Past a certain point, you're pretty much, what you have is what you're going to have.
Wow. Well, that's a beautiful piece.
Thank you. My husband likes that one a lot.
I love this.
This is called Incoming Tide. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the plein air process. So this was done plein air out at Tillman Island. And I was really intrigued by, I loved the way the shoreline kind of led you back into the distance to that pier. But I really loved that sort of poison green stuff that was growing in the tide, is in the tidal pools. So what I generally do when I go out, I always have my little notebook with me. They look like this or something similar. And the very first thing I do before I do anything else except set up my easel is I'll do what I call a thumbnail sketch. For me, the most important thing is composition. And if I don't get the composition right, it doesn't matter how beautifully I paint it. It's gotta be composed correctly. So I do a little thumbnail, and that becomes my guide as I work my way through the painting and complete the painting. I take notes. So on May the 14th, I started about 9:45. I finished at 11:30. This is my inventory number. So I can always go back from my plein air work. I have 10 or 12 of these notebooks. I can always go back and find where I painted it, what time it was, how long it took me, what day it was on, all that kind of information.
That is amazing. So I have to tell you just an aside story about this particular painting. So it was a flood survivor, and I have these laminated tags under each piece of art. So, we lost the first floor of our flood, but this painting survived because it was high up. So I come into the gallery while the construction workers are in. They've ripped out all the drywall, replacing the HVAC, everything. And I look up high on one of the columns, and they have found your laminated tag, and they posted it, and it said "Incoming Tide," which was hysterical. I mean,
I thought it was hysterical that you got in touch with us and told us the pieces that you were finding. And I thought it was hysterical that the very first piece of mine that you found was called Incoming Tide.
Laugh is to not cry.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly right.
Rob, do you have any more pictures for us to look at? One more. Here he comes.
This is actually one of the butter pieces. This was the only pastel I've done based on the butter photographs. And as you can see, I incorporated one of the watch faces in it. But it's essentially a pastel version of what I'm doing in colored pencil on the drafting film. I really liked the composition of this particular cropped photograph. So I've done this about 3 times now. But this was the only pastel. So when I finished doing it, I really wanted to sort of emphasize that focal point area. So I popped the clock face on, and then I put in some charcoal, and then I dribbled water on the charcoal, so that sort of drifted down and made that path down to the bottom of the painting.
That is a spectacular piece.
Thank you.
It really is. So Deborah, can you talk to us about like a common theme that runs through your work?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the work I do, nearly everything I do looks like a landscape. Even the abstracts. I mean, the last piece we just saw, it had a horizon line. Nearly every abstract I do has a horizon line. Most of the colored pencil pieces I do have a horizon line. And of course, I mean, there's a whole body of work out painting the landscape. So I find myself really deeply moved just looking at the natural world. I love the juxtaposition of natural elements against man-made elements as well. So I like to put buildings and small structures into my landscapes. But I've tried doing still lifes. I've tried doing figurative work, drawing people. drawing the model or doing portrait work. Nothing really grabs my heart or my attention like just looking over a field or looking down into the bed of a creek or watching the sun come through the trees. There's just something about the way the land rolls and the way the sun hits the surface and the shadows it makes, and that's just totally consuming to me.
That's wonderful. Could you talk about, is that your message to the viewers?
No, a lot of people talk about having a message. I'm not very good at that. I think if I were to sum up my message, and I don't mean to sound flippant, but if I were going to sum up my message, it's basically something like, I really like this a lot, so I want to share it with you. That's ultimately all I'm trying to do. I am so captivated by the things I work from, the materials and the mixed media and the way they go together, or the landscape, or a little tavern in Laurel, the things that just catch my imagination. I don't feel like I have to say anything about them necessarily. I feel like they kind of stand for themselves, and I don't really want people to. I don't want to tell people what to think either. I find that people do find their own meaning in things, especially in the abstracts. The piece, I need to tell you this, the piece that's in, you mentioned Strokes of Genius. I actually have that here. It's not so much finding meaning, but people do see what they want to see. This is the piece that's in Strokes of Genius. I don't know if you can see it too well, but it's it's a drawing of a Bass Harbor Head lighthouse. And as you can see, there's like really intricate rocks and very detailed stuff.
Wow.
It took me months to do it. And when I finished, I went to my husband. I said, Dad, I finished this. And he looks at it and he goes, he looks right at all these rocks and he goes, I see a monkey. First thing he said.
You've got to be kidding me.
No, he saw a monkey. And when he saw the monkey, I saw the monkey. I mean, once you see the monkey, you can't not see the monkey. So I had to go in and fix it. And
oh my gosh.
I'm sure there's other people who will look at it and go, "Oh, look, a badger." You can't control that stuff. It just is what it is.
Well, you say your message is, let me tell you what I like about your message. Your message is a gift to the world of your heart and your soul and what inspires you. And I think that is a wonderful message.
Well, thanks. That's good, because that's all there's going to ever be, I think. It's one of the things I was taught was, or I won't say taught, one of the pieces of advice I got once was, when you're painting a landscape, don't ever entitle the piece with the name of the place it was painted. Because if you say, this is, Crab Shanty, Bar Harbor, Maine, and somebody walks up to it and goes, wow, that looks like the little house that we used to see on the shore when I was a kid in Wisconsin. And then they look at it and they can see it's Maine. They go, oh, I want them to keep thinking about Wisconsin. I want them to find their own memories and, good feelings in the piece. So,
well, let's talk about the names of your paintings, because you have the most complex, intellectual, cerebral names of any painter in the country, almost of any painter I've ever met. Can you tell us a few examples?
That's not necessarily true. It's only true of the mixed media abstracts, because when I finish the abstracts, I try and think of I don't go into it thinking about what they're going to look like. They tend to take a life of their own, and they wind up, I get in the car and I punch the navigation to go to Albuquerque, but I could wind up anywhere. And when I wind up, I look at it, but so many of them do seem like geological and geographical sort of looking things. So I have a whole list over here on my bulletin board of geologic terms, and I look for them for ones that are appropriate. I have a piece called orogenesis because it looks like the forces of just shoving rock up and making mountains. It's what it looks like, and that's what orogenesis means. That's really where they come from.
Sometimes I've had to look up what it means.
Well, I had to look it up too. I'm not a geologist or I don't know. So if it weren't for Wikipedia, I'd be calling things like Larry, or painting number 12.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think that you're wicked smart, and so that's
Yeah.
where it comes from. All
Yeah.
right, here's a last question. Well, one of the last ones is, tell us what the most challenging part of your process is.
Yeah, you'd asked me for some questions and I came up with this one and I thought, well, that's a really good question. And then early this morning, I realized I didn't have any idea what the answer was. So I've been thinking about this all day. And to tell you the truth, I think it is the thing that I talked about a little bit when I talked about the racks where I put things that are finished. Most work, and I know I'm not alone. I know almost any artist you talk to will tell you the same thing. When you're working on a piece, especially something that lasts longer than a quick plein air sketch, it goes through an ugly stage. So you start out with a plan and an idea in your head, and generally the first several passes, everything's going great and you're real happy with the way it's going, and you keep going, and pretty soon, for one reason or another, it just goes south. You look at it and you go, this isn't what I had in mind at all. And sometimes it's because you've strayed, and sometimes it's because something in the work that you're doing is taking you in a different direction, but you're not aware of that direction yet. So you have to put it away and or at least put it aside, put it someplace where you can see it, and go down and look at it every day. And I'll often sit in front of something forever and take notes about, maybe I should do this or maybe I should try that. I have lots of pastel paintings that never saw the light of day. I think I'm working on my 5th or 6th bag of shame. I have like 5 or 6 bags of shame, full of awful paintings.
Well, I think that is such a good message to people who are just starting out in art, is that it doesn't always go well.
No, it doesn't. There's an artist who is very well known, wrote a great book, and he talks about what, if he has a really bad painting, one of the things he does is cut them up and turn them into something else. And this is a really well-known guy. I mean, everybody knows who this is. And in the book, he says, and if you don't have any bad paintings in your studio, just call me. I got a whole bunch you can use. So it's really reassuring to know that you're not the only person who has all that bad work lying around.
Yeah, I think that's a great message to other artists. All right, Deborah, what else would you like people to know?
One of the things I wanted to tell you was you talked about the ethos of your gallery, that you wanted to be a place where a person can come in and see things that are beautiful, leave the cares and tribulations of the outside world outside, and just enjoy the objects and the people and the space. And it reminded me of a story I heard. There's a gallery in Scottsdale called Xanadu. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And Jason Horesh, he was doing seminars for artists a few years back in this area about working with a gallery. And the story he told, I've never forgotten, and it's on his website as well. He and his wife had spent years planning for and investing in and getting ready for opening a gallery. It was what they wanted to do for a long, long time, and it was, their the goal of their life, as opening yours was for you. And they put all that work in, and they had everything lined up, and they had sunk all their lives and their money in it. And they opened their doors for the very first time on September the 10th, 2001. And the next day was 9/11. And so they said, we're sitting here on the 11th of September looking around and going, what do we do now? Have we thrown everything away? Will we ever survive? And, what does this mean? And on the 12th, the next day, they stayed open. The very first person, they've been open 2 days now, the very first person to come into their gallery walked in and said, I just had to get out of the house. I had to turn the TV off. It was just so awful. I had to come and look at something beautiful.
And I have read that too on his site, and he said, and that's when I knew we were going to be okay.
Right. It's the power of art. I mean, that sort of sums up for me the power that art has for people, that release, the sort of balm in times of trouble, the ability to put pain away. And I think that's probably, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I suspect that's part of why you and Max worked so furiously and so hard and just indefatigably to bring your gallery back after the July 30 flood. You were the first merchant open down there. That's amazing to me.
Thank you, Deborah. Well, I am thrilled to have you in the gallery, and I want to thank you for being here.
I wouldn't want to be anyplace else. I love working with you. I love being in the gallery. The other artists are so inspiring. They're so wonderful. They're so caring. They're just terrific people. And when we have our get-togethers, thank you, Beverly. It's not my story, though. You should go to the Xanadu Gallery. You'll see. But when we have our get-togethers, it just feels like home. All those wonderful people. And you have the connection of art, but we connect as people as well, which I find really, really warm group of people.
You guys are a wonderful community. So Deborah, you're going to have to tell the other artists that this experience wasn't frightening and scary, because you are number 12 of 47. And I am beginning to have to pull artists like, oh, please be on the show, because some of them are so worried. So you have to tell them.
I don't mind, my husband will tell you that, it's not that hard to get me to talk. The trick is getting me to stop. And that's true. And I love talking about my work. I love talking about art. I've actually done some interviews before, so I'm not too uncomfortable with the process. But if you want me to, I'd be happy to walk. One of the things I wasn't sure about it, I just didn't know what to expect. So, I got a little anxious to understand the process. I'm happy to talk to anybody. You want to have them call me, I'll walk them through what I did to prepare, and how easy you guys make it. It's really, the hardest thing I had to do was wash my hair.
Nice. Well, thank you, Deborah. It was really great.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you.
And Rob, thank you so much. Is there
Rob's a genius. I mean, I was teasing him. I figured he must be doing yoga, because he's carrying his camera and he stops and yeah, that's right. And he stops and takes photographs, and he's like holding really still, and then he just starts to pan the camera really slowly. And I'm thinking, man, my arms would be shaking and my legs would be wobbling. And
no, he's an athlete. He's in really good shape.
You don't realize how physical a profession it is. I was really impressed.
All right, so let me tell you what's going to happen next week. So thank you, Rob. Next week, we are going to have painter, fabulous artist, Laurie Hanson on. Laurie is a fine arts, also transmogrified, in addition to be a fine arts painter, into quite a whimsical painter. And so she has a wide variety of art in the gallery, and she's just as nice and kind-hearted of a person that I've ever met. So I look forward to sharing her work with you next week. That'll be next Thursday, 7 o'clock on the 12th. No, is it no. It's the 18th of May.
It's the 18th.
Take care. It was lovely being with you. I'll see you next week. Bye.